So you're going to reach that point in your business when it's time to bring in kind of a heavy hitter, an outside resource, somebody who is a higher level executive that can help you take the business performance to the next level. That's a pretty stressful time, and it's also a key point where you really need to slow down in order to get ahead quicker. And what I mean is, if you make a mistake in this area, it can be extremely costly. It can be a do or die deal. It's really hard to find a good fit, good alignment with someone when the competition is so much better funded and able to throw out higher salaries and benefits. And of course, your challenge is, how do I get someone at a high level without giving up too much equity or too much of the capital that I have for my business? I mean, it's a balancing act, and you're juggling everything. You're trying to build the business and the culture and communication systems and everything at the same time. But when you reach this point, there are two critical things that have to be taken care of before you actually get out there and try to recruit. Whether you're using a professional recruiting service or whether you're doing it on your own, it doesn't matter. You've got to take care of this business first. So we're going to be right back and talk about those two things.
Welcome to the Communication Culture, where we help entrepreneurs and small businesses build transparency and accountability through effective communications. If you like this content, let's talk. Email Loy at loyedge.com or call 877-LOY-EDGE. Now, here we go.
In a lot of cases, whether you're a small business or you're an entrepreneur who's bootstrapping an enterprise, or you hit a level where you say, it's time for us to bring in some outside executive expertise to help us get to the next level. It's a real challenge because a lot of the people out there have many more assets, whether it's, you got the government and corporations and other better established companies. They're all out there throwing these big salaries and benefits at people, and you're trying to bring in someone who has a high level of expertise, who's a leader, who has also got an entrepreneurial spirit, who can come in there and work side by side with you. And and you have to, as an entrepreneur, you have to preserve as much of your equity and your capital as you possibly can. So it's a real challenge, and you don't want to make a mistake, because that can be just devastating. So this is one of those key points where it's important to slow down in order to speed up. And what I mean is, it's incumbent upon you and no one else. You've got to do this. I mean, you can pull your advisory group or your board together, but it's critical for you to define the role that you're seeking to fill and to define what the ideal candidate would look like. You can't leave any of this to chance. You've got to literally define it in writing, because whether you use an executive search firm or whether you're doing it yourself, this is going to be a real valuable and enduring tool for you. You want to share it across the whole organization too, so that everyone can see what this role is all about and what the person would have to be all about who would fill this role successfully. Because it's important that all the good people around you are able to see this and make an objective self-assessment in case they aren't being considered for this role, to understand exactly why. And good people who are reasonable are going to look at that and say, hey, that's not me. I don't have expertise in this level, at this level for these particular things. So there are going to be unique challenges probably for your business. So you're going to have a unique skill set or something that you're seeking. You got to get it defined in writing. So it seems very difficult, but it's just, you got to imagine all the different scenarios, and so once you've defined the role and the whole universe of expectations of this role, because it's all about setting expectations, and the fewer surprises the better, because you want to have long-term success and a good alignment with this individual. So you get the role defined, and now you literally want to put together a picture of what does the ideal candidate look like. What are their motives? What are their attributes? Let's put it all together and say, well, what would they look like? We literally did this with a client who had a very unique, very unusual and unique set of needs for someone in the financial services industry who could also play ball with the culture that we had developed, which was, instead of being a typical bank, we had a facility that was designed specifically to host events where we would inform, educate, and connect our clientele. Someone had to be a good host, they had to be a good communicator, they had to be driven by this sort of an environment and comfortable with it. So we put together a poster that we used, that we shared across the organization, and it's kind of a profile of what the ideal candidate would look like. Now, we knew we wouldn't find the perfect ideal candidate, but it's important to set the expectations so that you give yourself the best chance of finding someone who would be in alignment with the attitudes, values, and beliefs of the company, and someone who would be successful in this role. So I'm just going to quickly give you a little list of what we put down here, the attributes of our ideal client for this role. Empathetic, circumspect, and an objective advisor. Obviously, they're working with sophisticated clientele. They need to be able to have these qualities. A credible resource. It's financial services. The person had to have a lot of credibility. Expert on business. They had to know what they're talking about. Can't come right out of school and start advising CEOs as their banker. Politically, socially, culturally aware and engaged. When you have hundreds of events with different people, you have to have a worldly perspective. Influential with peers and community. We wanted someone who had built that kind of influence. Charitable. There was a lot of charitable attributes to the culture that we had developed. We needed somebody who understood that and could roll with that. Develops and supports colleagues. Our culture was all based upon a dynamic organizational chart where there was a lot of training involved, always training for your ultimate replacement. So it can't be someone who's just focused on themselves. Intellectual and emotional intelligence. Masterful communicator, facilitator, interpreter, and speech maker. Again, hundreds of events, you're playing host. You've got to be pretty agile in all these areas. Builds lifetime associations. One of the elements of our culture was we're trying to achieve lifetime friendships. And so we had a long-term perspective on relationships. It was important that we found someone who was in alignment with that. Unquestionable integrity and reputation. It's financial services. Understated, respectful, and self-aware. Want someone who's going to reflect positively, personality-wise, on your organization. Polished, professional, and stylish appearance. Obviously, appearance is important. You don't want to have someone who fits 90% of the role, but then as an embarrassment, you have to have uncomfortable conversations about their appearance. You need to put all this out there so that the conversations are up front. We can say, hey, maybe this isn't your strong area, but we want you to know that this is ultimately an expectation of this role, so we're going to work on this together if that is agreeable to you. Polished, professional, stylish appearance, resilient, resistant, confident, disciplined, and tenacious. This is a leadership role. This is a fledgling company. There are a lot of setbacks when you're building a new company, so you need somebody who is that kind of a non-quitter, somebody who's out there being a leader. Likeable, friendly, positive. That's just the way the culture was that we were trying to build. A thoughtful and generous host. Okay, a typical financial services person might not be inclined to be a thoughtful and generous host, but this was a big part of our culture. So you can see how helpful it is to define these things, get them out there, whether you're bringing in professionals to help you recruit or whether you're doing it yourself, out there just getting your boots muddy, looking for the right people. It's important that you define these things first so that you give yourself the best chance at success, finding somebody who shares your attitudes, values, and beliefs. Thank you for joining me on the communication culture. We're going to talk about these issues a lot in the future. So please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.